Hey Dan, appreciate you taking the time today.
Yours.
For a little context to our audience here, I'm Jake, one of the co-founders at mobile.dev here. And I have the honor of chatting with Dan, who is one of our most impactful Maestro community members. And so I just want to take some time to learn a little bit more about him and the company that he supports and just kind of hear his story about Maestro and the impact it's making there. So without further ado, Dan, I would love to hear a little bit more about yourself, what you do, what your company does, and kind of your journey to Maestro.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Dan. I'm head of testing for Doccla. Doccla are a clinical services company. They do remote patient monitoring, virtual wards. So they have patients who are able to spend time at home rather than in hospital beds, and they do that through a mobile app that's connected up to Bluetooth devices like a blood pressure monitor, a thermometer, scales, whatever. That's sending information off to clinicians who work for Doccla, and they are able to then um, assess whether they actually need any direct medical care. And so people are able to spend time at home where they want to be, rather than hospital beds, which are really expensive. Um,
Amazing.
when when I joined Dockler about a year ago, I was even though I work across all of the engineering teams, I spent my first 4 months, 6 months almost solidly with the mobile team. They'd had some quality problems in the past, and they wanted direct testing help to kind of to dig them out. Um, so then our very pretty much day one was like we need some test automation to be able to cover some of the stuff you're doing in this tiny little team. Journey into Maestro was then once you then get to evaluation of how the what the need was. So, without going too deep into like medical device regulations and things like that, basically every time you ship the app, you have to test everything. All of your requirements have to be tested, and you need to keep that paper, you need to keep that record. And so, we had ideas at the time about being able to ship every 2 weeks, which I don't know, if 2025 sounds like, well, yeah. Um, then we weren't anywhere close because every
Yeah.
time you shipped, someone used to sit there with a massive sheet of test rail and do 120, 130 tests. It was half a day of sitting there and taking things off, and like all that time spent um, doing tests that we were pretty sure were never going to fail was time not spent building features, and it
Yeah.
made you not want to release because like it was hard. Um, as I can tell you, I got bruises from blood pressure cuffs. Um, but then looking around, because of the nature of what we wanted to do, we didn't want something like detox that was going to like I'm going to put tendrils inside your build and so I can hook into everything. Like Maestro was something that when we looked around, we wanted something that was like this is open source, so it's not gonna disappear if the company disappears. We want something that's accessible to developers that we can get uptake on. But more than anything, driving the device, right? If I want to go and look at the Bluetooth settings and see that the device is visible, if I want to be able to go and download another app through Chrome, if I want to be able to, like Maestro being able to run a device, test a device rather than test an app, that was really, really powerful in terms of convincing people that this was, even though we weren't aiming that high yet, we we might at some point, and so they gave us absolute headroom in order to do all the
Yeah.
things that we were going to want to do.
Man, that's such a awesome
Such a long
story.
answer to a short question.
Yeah,
Sorry.
no, I mean, I know you could probably keep going on all the different, things that kind of were able to enable with Maestro there. But I think I meet with so many companies, and I think teams, especially in this like in more regulated spaces where like testing is such a important requirement to be able to prove you've done that.
Absolutely.
But it can be such a time suck. And I think there's thousands and thousands of companies out there today that are still dealing with this same pain point. So it's really cool to see the impact there. So tell me a bit about the kind of getting, I think, I feel a sense of like you made a call on Maestro. You were telling me a story in the past of sort of like how you got your company going, but then it kind of got contagious. Maybe tell me a bit about
Oh,
getting started with Maestro at Doccla and how that went.
oh,
And sort of
totally.
what's
So, like,
changed.
the same with all new tools. Like, you have a champion. You need to build that momentum. So, like, in a team, I was there plugging away in the background. I'd occasionally get involved in like, regular day-to-day testing, but I was plowing as much time as I could into building up the our test coverage in the background. And so, initially, when we were at kind of 5%, 10%, people were like, "Oh, that's nice." Once you got to about the 20% mark. And that, like that day of testing, people felt that kind of like, I've got an hour or two back because I've got all of a sudden it shoots up. People are invested. Like Maestro makes it easy. It's YAML. Like people don't want to learn like didn't want to learn like the intricacies of Selenium and that kind of thing. Like the fact
Yep.
that they could just read a test and it's pretty much like self-explanatory about how this is going to work. And it was easy. There was no compiling. People all of a sudden started picking up and go, oh, well, this is good. They like within a month we were like great, other people are writing, they've taken it up to 30%. I'm now skirting around the edges. Instead of writing tests, I'm talking to other people about how to run it locally, how to get just those little bits, mostly sending them links to the docs. Um, and and now, if I look at how the team works now, I'm almost completely uninvolved. I don't need to be because they are with every new feature, and there's a Maestro test, with every new sprint, and we're going to backfill some more. Probably with the way, with some of the things they've got, right? They're probably not going to get to 100% of their requirements. Some of the Bluetooth, like you can't provide an arm for the Bluetooth cuff or whatever, but they're going to get as close as they absolutely can. And I don't need to do anything. They are properly hooked on it. It's great.
That's incredible. What's like the who are like what types of roles are these people? Like who are you working with at Dockla? Like in terms of are you educating other mobile developers or other
Yeah,
automation engineers or
absolutely. Absolutely. So we've got in terms of people who are writing tests, that's a bunch of mobile devs. They are as part of feature work, we want to test as well. And so as part of code review, that covers let me look at the requirement, let me look at the implementation, let me look at the test, and let me check this Maestro test matches like the text of the requirement for the regulatory piece. Then you've got people downstream who are evaluating the paperwork who are going, I've got a green tick in a test report, and I've got a Maestro test that provided that tick, and the Maestro test matches the requirement, and you've got the traceability, the IDs, and so then you've got there's a bunch of people further downstream who are kind of going, I'm getting my paperwork faster, and actually the mobile team is outperforming some other team because they've got the tooling that they've put in place specifically with this problem in mind.
edible? Man, that's awesome that
Not that I'm competitive.
yeah. So you got brought in to figure out the testing and like automation strategy, but now you've kind of gotten the whole organization on board to
Yeah.
like help build out coverage and all these things. And then from there, like what does your day to day, what does it allow you to focus on? Um,
Oh, so the team is spending their time not focusing on the testing. They're focusing on building cool stuff. They've been able to accelerate how fast they can get features. I talked about we wouldn't dream of releasing every 2 weeks. They have released every 2 weeks for months, including over Christmas, because they've just got that level of confidence. They tag a release. Robin kicks off a build. They grab the test results. That gets ported into it, and like it's now like, oh well, add the daily. Should we do a release? Yeah, sure. And by lunchtime, it's done. Like it's sealed, and they like, yeah, it's astonishing. So I'm spending my time occasionally skirting around the edges of some hairier Bluetooth problems. I'm not spending my time like I'm the automation guy. I don't do that anymore. I can just, I'm looking at performance problems. I'm looking at the stuff that isn't the functional testing day-to-day monotony. I'm freed up. They're freed up. Like
that's so cool.
it's been part of like proper organizational change.
Yeah, yeah. How so then I guess you built out these tests. dev teams on board, then like how do you have it implemented into your development process? Like what does that look like for your team? Like how often are you running testing and how do you have it
Oh,
put in
so the tests live alongside the code in the main repository. Everything is all tied together with reference numbers and things like that. Everybody's got the setup in order to be able to run the tests locally. And so if they're worried that, oh, whilst I'm halfway through this, I might have broken such and such, they know how to just go uh, Maestro test slash something slash functional area, that test. I want to check that like I haven't broken password validation rules, and they know how to run one test or all the tests, or and so like they're building that kind of. Let's not find out later that we've got a bug. Let's test
Yeah.
as we're going, so that like I don't need any Jira paperwork. I fixed it before it's broken, and that's how day-to-day operation is going. When when you get to main, main is being tested at least once a day, every day by just GitHub action schedules and making sure that's ready. Because what you don't want to do is reach the end of your 2 weeks and go run the tests. A test fails, right? When you get to release stage, you don't want that. Like everything needs to be far, far earlier. So all of a sudden, there's a mind shift. Everybody's talking about good engineering and risk and quality and all the conversations are the right kind of conversations. It's
Yeah.
about, is this safe to ship? If not, run some more tests. And right now do you have the confidence to ship? Great, now ship it. And like as a tester, listening to the conversations where I don't need to be the one pushing. I don't need to be. I'm never the one gatekeeping. I'm not doing any of that. I'm just sat back watching cool people making cool decisions, building cool stuff. It's great.
It's amazing. So I feel like the decision, like kind of just recapping, the decision was more around not having to be in the business of maintaining, you know.
Oh,
I
yeah.
think this is, I mean, that's the beauty of Maestro is super flexible to
Oh,
DIY and make, kind of have that kind of capability. But yeah, I guess summing it up, but it feels like it just was easier and it allowed you to focus on,
well,
you know,
absolutely. Like,
work.
that opportunity cost, right? So at the time we were working in a team that had three mobile developers in, right? If you need to be managing Xcode upgrades and Android SDK updates and
Yeah.
oh, I need to clean up my emulators because it's got an old version of such and such on it, and I need to, right? You're taking time away from what you could be doing, which is focusing on building um building features that are going to help patients' lives and or deliver value for some investor somewhere, something that's actually earning money. The
Yeah.
cost of Maestro Cloud as it was when we made the decision, like it was practically a no-brainer because you kind of go like, well, if you're saving a developer day a week, like have you seen how much mobile devs get paid? Like Maestro Cloud's a no-brainer. As it's shifted the conversation, people aren't thinking about money. People are thinking about quality. People are doing the right things, and people are saving time because they don't need to worry about this stuff.
Uh, Amazing. No, appreciate you sharing kind of that context for y'all specifically. I think kind of the last piece I'd be interested is like where, what's next for y'all in terms of, how do you like to expand using Maestro and what are some of the bets that you or recommendations, I guess, that you would want us to take in terms of like what might be missing from Maestro that would just add even more to what
So
y'all are doing.
conversations from the last week that I've been having with the team. First of all, they want to expand what they're doing in the Robin platform. At the moment, they're testing their patient app and they're testing it multiple times a day. But that's not their only app. They've got the same thing. They've got a similar app for carers, and they're going like, "Well, a lot of this is the same functionality. Couldn't we just?" And of course, the answer is, "Well, yeah, sure. You've already paid for the devices. You can use them for whatever apps you want. Like, crack on." It's just a case of writing some YAML, and a lot of it for what they want to do is copying and pasting some YAML. Like, crack on. It's just spending the time to set up the GitHub Actions and stuff. They're talking about, okay, well, people might want to self-serve, they might want to use iOS. Great. Well, like actually, again, it's this is React Native land, right? So
Yeah.
they've written it once. Yeah, okay. Some of the flows will be slightly different when you talk about, oh, this Bluetooth permission text, blah, 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 blah. But like 90% of those tests are going to be reusable because it's cross-platform code, um, and so that's what they're looking at.
Well,
Uh,
anyway, I think we can wrap up. I don't know if you have any like last closing thoughts, comments, things you might want to make, but yeah, we can wrap it from there.
I could, I could go into a real bit of tester nerd stuff for a sec, right? There is a Testers spend a whole lot of their time talking about risk-based testing, right? What are the things that we have likely broken, right? And one of the things that I've really quite liked about having the Maestro tests there is that pretty much for any given year where I make risk-based decisions on what to test and what not to test, I'm going to get the decision wrong at least once, and a bug is going to make it into prop. There's always one more bug, right? The the cool thing about having all the automation in place is that you don't there's a bunch of that decision that you don't make. There's a bunch of that decision you go like, oh, which test should I run? All of them. And so then your risk decision ends up being down here where you're going, what else shall I test? What is it that the automation doesn't cover, can't cover, or or what else shall I do? Let's look at accessibility, performance, security, all those things that end up on the nice to have list of most orgs. They obviously, like for some things in the high regulation, like actually aren't optional. Yeah, it frees up a lot. It frees up a lot of time because you're not spending that time making risk calls, and yeah, that's neat.
Incredible, incredible closing comment, and I could not agree more. I hear that kind of story from a lot of folks too, of what it just frees up to start looking at that is also important, but just, falls a little further down on the list or whatever. So, well, anyway, well, Dan, appreciate you taking the time and sharing a little bit about your journey to Maestro for Doccla. So,
Absolutely, anytime.
right, cool. I'll cut it there. Thanks, man.